On the 7th of May, it was an evening time. I was in the cinema and ironically I was watching the Michael Jackson movie, which actually has a lot of synchronicities with what actually happened that evening, and it was definitely a sign. But basically something happened that was completely out of my control, which I will get into in this. Over the last 10 days, I have had to sit and face myself. And I am so grateful for the lessons that I've learned over the last 10 days, and I want to share them with you all. These are for anyone who feels like when things go outside of their control in life that they react, or else if you respond with calm and rationality. We delude ourselves into thinking that we have control over certain things in our lives: money, relationship, love, validation, security in our job. We like to think that we have control. When you get married to someone, you feel like you've control because they're your lifelong partner. When you make X amount of money, you feel in control because you feel more secure because now you're making 50k a month instead of 20k a month. Got a new job, it's a 9 to 5, guaranteed pension, and you've made it. You are super secure in that now. You are in a relationship that's end game. You just got engaged and you feel secure now. You feel loved now. You feel approved now. That is all an illusion. We like to find security and control in things to give ourselves a false sense of security. I actually have my journal. That's how raw and honest I'm going to be in this video, because I truly think that anyone who feels like when things go west or when things go outside your control, that when you know this and you know these lessons, I'm not going to say it's going to make things easier, because I think the worst thing you can do is tell someone to suppress how they feel. Everyone's experiencing life for the first time. People face adversity in different ways, and for you to come along and say that you have all the answers and that you are someone who can fix it by watching a YouTube video or saying all this in a YouTube video is absolutely ridiculous. What someone else faces is what they face. But had I known these things that I know now from what happened to me over the last 10 days and from the journey that I've been on over the last year and a half, I would say, in finding who it is that I am and stripping back all the layers of myself, I genuinely feel like my life's purpose and passion and being born to do is to gift people of what it is that I went through. It's kind of like your pain is your purpose, but more so that I wish I'd known these things earlier. And now that I know these things, I know that this is my calling. Especially what happened over the last 10 days was just kind of the cherry on top, so to say. I love this quote. It's by Higher Up Wellness, Michael Smoke. He's my favorite content creator on Instagram at the minute. You have to understand that when you pray for something, you are praying to be stripped of everything that is out of alignment with it. Do not curse the process that answers your prayers. Be careful what it is that you wish for, because oftentimes when you are wishing for more money, location freedom, time freedom, to live in your purpose, you will be tested so heavily by the universe and by God. And even if you don't believe in God, you will be given tests from the universe to see, are you someone who's capable of serving to others based upon what it is that you've been through? Can you actually hold this? So if you're looking for a new revenue ceiling, if you are looking for a dream apartment, if you want to live in your purpose of what it is that you have been brought here to do, or you're asking for that, you're asking for your purpose, you have a whisper in your gut and you're asking for the answers, or you're praying for the answers, you have to be ready for the tests that come with that. You will be put through so much adversity to see if this is something that you actually can hold and something that you can serve. And the best way that I like to describe this is your greatest pain can either be turned into your purpose or can be turned into resentment, fear, anger, hatred. You have a choice in which path you'd like to choose. Now, what I want to preface with that is, if you are someone who's going through the ringer at the minute, you will not be able to understand this with your rational brain. You'll be like, fuck you, fuck the world, fuck everyone. If you are in lower levels of consciousness right now, which is David R. Hawkins has our levels of consciousness, and consciousness is essentially our thoughts, beliefs, emotional convictions, emotional patterns, actions, habits, behaviors based upon the environment that we grew up in. So for me personally, I grew up in a tiny village in the south of Ireland, and the collective consciousness, so the thoughts, beliefs, emotional patterns, habits of the people that I was surrounded by, the school that I went to, was fear, judgment, shame, guilt. You have to do things this way. This is the route to success. There's only one path. This is the path that every single person fits on. It doesn't matter if you're creative, if you're neurodivergent, if you have dreams of being a millionaire, a podcaster, an actress. You need to take this path, the one that everyone else takes, in order to have success, and you need to conform essentially. And when you are conforming in a collective consciousness that you don't feel aligned in, you will never feel like yourself. You will always feel like an outsider. That's how I felt in school. I always felt like an outsider, is the only way I can explain it, like a black sheep, because I knew that I was conforming, but I couldn't understand why. And it was because of the environment that I was in. It's almost like when there's a black sheep in the middle of loads of white sheep. It just doesn't fit. I was the black sheep. I just did not fit. When you don't fit into a collective consciousness, you will be bullied, you will be laughed at, you will be embarrassed, and you won't understand why, and you'll have so much anger and shame and guilt and fear. You can choose that path of pain, or you can choose a path where you use it for your greatest purpose. Like I said, if you are someone who's going really through the ringer right now, you might not be able to see the other side, and that is okay. The biggest preface that I want to make for this video is, you should never suppress how you feel. Suppression of expression leads to depression. It must go through you in order to live outside of you. If you're someone who's really going through it at the minute, you need to let that through you. You need to let it through your heart, your body. You need to be angry. You need to be sad. You need to cry. You need to hold grief. You need to hold anger. You need to hold pain. You need to go through that first, before you can actually step into a choice of whether you want to choose pain or you want to choose to use it as your greatest purpose. But if you are currently going through it right now, you may not be able to see that, and that is okay. Like I said, when you are wishing for your dreams to come true, you will get tested time and time and time again. I just feel like over the last year, I have really shifted my identity. I was someone who built 2 six-figure businesses from my horse shed on fitness. So I was the fitness coach. I was the person who was very people-pleasing all of the time. I posted content that made people feel better, that wasn't in any way controversial. I would say in a way, conformed in that sense without realizing, and stayed small and didn't really share strong beliefs that I had on the world out of fear of judgment or fear of what other people thought of me. And the thing is that if you don't stand against something, you don't stand for something. If you are not growing, you're dying. And so I had to shed this whole identity that I built success on, that I made money on, that I could never have imagined, like coming from a tiny village in the middle of nowhere with no money, and being able to do what I did, for me, was everything. But that was built on an identity of pain, of suffering, of struggling, because that's all I knew. All I knew was hardship, because that's all I'd seen. And I'm so grateful to my parents for showing me what hard work is. Like, without that work ethic, I would not have built what I built. Without the collective consciousness that I grew up in, without growing up in Ireland, I wouldn't have the grittiness that I have. I wouldn't have the tenacity that I have. I wouldn't have the balls that I have. I wouldn't have those things. So I'm so grateful for my upbringing. I'm so grateful for my work ethic. I'm so grateful for the path where I was the black sheep all the way up. I'm so grateful for that, because that made me into who I am. But what I realized was I was carrying so much pain, because I built that first business from my horse shed off of pain. Yes, I was leaning into my passion. I was so obsessed with fitness, and I still am. I was so obsessed with fitness and helping people. I'm such an empath. I really feel like I'm here to serve people. Like, that's what I feel in my soul. My soul calling is to help as much people as possible, make the income they want to make, build a dream business, have location freedom, have time freedom, and really just fucking go after what it is that they want. Like, that is my soul calling. I even had that from a very, very young age. Like, I knew that that was my calling. I had that side, but then the other side was I had this lower level of consciousness of resentment, of anger, of a bit of kind of fuck you energy, to be honest, where every single person who bullied me, every single person who told me I wasn't good enough, every single time I got B's and C's instead of A's, every single time I was rejected and told no, I just used that as fuel. So I had a chip on my shoulder, because growing up I was seeing everyone else have the things that I didn't have, and it was because we didn't have the money growing up. And I just stacked that pain, and I also stacked the pain of being the black sheep, and I stacked the pain of being bullied for feeling different. I stacked all this pain from being an outsider to use it as fuel to be like, fuck everyone, I'm doing this and I'm going all in on my dreams and I'm going to get there, and I don't give a fuck what it takes, I'm going to do it. I don't care who told me I can't do it, I'm doing it. And I had that emotional conviction towards, I'm fucking doing this no matter what, no one can stop me. And that is amazing. That chip on your shoulder, that pain that you carry and hold, that can be your fuel, and that can absolutely get you off the ground. But what I've come to realize is that that's not going to get me to my next level. It doesn't need to be the case. If I want to be a multimillionaire, I want to help as much people as possible, push past their paper walls, make a bigger impact on the world, pursue their goals and dreams, and serve people. I can choose if I want to keep building from suffering, hardship, and struggle, which is all I know, or I can choose to build from love and from my heart and through joy. And it doesn't have to come with the struggle and the hardship and the suffering. The only reason I thought that that was the only way I could build was because that's all I knew. And that's what I was addicted to. Like, my identity was built on pain, on suffering, on struggling, on working my fucking arse off to make money. And even to make like pittance, because I was working like 3 jobs at one stage. I was in college and I was also building my online business. And I thought that that was the equivalent of success and making a lot of money. Because it was so wired into me, like the struggle, the hardship, the suffering for money. That's all I'd ever seen. That's all I knew. And in order for me to get to my next level, which is 100K month founder, is what my current goal is. And to help entrepreneurs and founders push past these internal limitations and internal ceilings and rewire their self-concept to understand that it doesn't need to come from struggle, that it doesn't need to come from pain. And if anything, if you are building from that place of pain and you're living your life through pain or resentment, even if it's there subconsciously and unconsciously. So for me, I was holding on to a lot of pain from my younger years that I was unconsciously and subconsciously holding in my body. So even though on a day-to-day basis, I was like happy-go-lucky, had so much gratitude, like was living my dream life, like all these things, was really, really helping people, something deep down was off. And like I could feel it in my energy. Like I would meet people and feel so exhausted after, or my brain will be going a million miles a minute all of the time, all day, every day, and it would just be constant, like you have to do more, you have to do more lead generation, do more outreach, post more, you have to help more people, you have to do go, because that's what I was so wired into, and that's what built my first 2 businesses and what got me to my dream life. So that's all I knew. But I have now realized that I need to let go of that if I want to, like I said, get to the next place. I don't have to build from suffering and from pain. And the biggest example I can give of this is, and like I said, I didn't even know consciously because I was on autopilot. I was choosing to ignore how I was actually feeling through distraction. So through posting more, busy work, making more content, doing more outreach, constantly on the go, like training, meeting people, chatting to people, reading, journaling. Like I was just distracting myself with so much external things that I was actually on autopilot and hiding from myself and from what was actually going on underneath, subconsciously and unconsciously. And the thing is that it will show up in ways that you can't understand. So you will keep choosing relationships that don't align with you. You will keep doing so much inputs in your business and you will not break past revenue ceilings. And even if you do break past certain revenue ceilings, you will always default back to the old ones. So for example, if you're making 10K a month or 15K a month and you've hit 30, you will constantly default back. Eventually, it might be after a couple of months, it might be after 2-3 years, it might be after 10 years, you will default back to the autopilot version of yourself if you have not looked at yourself and sat with yourself and actually faced yourself without distraction. Those subconscious and unconscious patterns will keep on running. And that's why I was so confused around like relationships that I was choosing and dates that I was choosing as well, because I know my worth, I know who I am, and well, at least I thought I did. That is a journey that you'll forever go on. And I, on the outside, like very confident and just not wanting to choose someone who was gonna cheat on me, who was gonna treat me like shit, like all these things, who was emotionally unavailable. And somehow I kept ending up with those people. And it was literally because my unconscious and subconscious patterns were still running. So that was what I was familiar with. And that's the thing, if you do not make your unconscious or your subconscious aware, like if you don't bring that to your conscious brain, which is, sorry, I should have explained that. Your subconscious and your unconscious like rule your day-to-day. They rule like 90 to 95% of our day-to-day actions. And that's like what's going on when just before we go to bed at night and when we wake up first thing in the morning. Your subconscious brain is always on, but like the one that is like working in our day-to-day is the conscious brain, which is 10% of like what we do in like our day-to-day lives and the decisions we make and stuff. But it's all based upon what goes on subconsciously and unconsciously through patterns that have been wired into us from when we were small, from collective consciousnesses. That's why people find it so difficult to start businesses in Ireland, or to show up on social media, or to stand up for what they truly want and for what they believe in, and just say the fucking thing like directly. Like they find that so uncomfortable and get so triggered by it because it's not normal in our society to do that. And so then you're shunned because of that. That's the thing about people pleasing as well. When you are deciding for yourself that you want to create your own path and you want to live an authentic life and a life that is yours and that's not dictated by other people's opinions, by society, by governments, by people who are saying like, this is what you should do, this is the equivalent of success, and then you'll be successful and you'll have a pension and you'll be secure and you'll have all these things. It's like, it's tricking you into a false sense of security, because nothing that isn't within us and anything that lives outside of us, as long as you place security in things outside of you, like money, like your job, like your 9 to 5, your degree, you will never feel secure within, because things outside of us are always changing. They are forever changing. And think about it. If you place security on money, and then there'll be times where you'll have lots of money, and then there'll be times where you'll have not so much money, and then there'll be times where you'll get a high income month, and then there'll be times where you have unexpected bills. If you are constantly basing your security on money or things outside of you, or the amount of leads you get, the amount of sales calls you book, or a relationship, or whatever it is, you will forever be dysregulated and going through emotions where it's constantly up and it's constantly down. There's things in life called pendulums, and this is referencing the Kabbalion, which is from the Hermetic philosophy, where they believe that the mind is all, and they explain pendulums really well. And it's like the swing to the left is the same as the swing to the right, and it's the same. You can use the same analogy for quantum physics, Newton's law of every action has an opposite and equal reaction. It's the same thing. So it's like the swing to the left is the same as the swing to the right. If you are on that pendulum and you are swinging with that pendulum every time, your world is going to feel crazy. Your internal world is going to feel crazy. I'm going to use myself as an example, like as an entrepreneur. If I was constantly reacting to things going wrong in my business, so losing clients, losing sales, not making as much sales, content not hitting, I would be constantly in a state of fear, anxiety, stress, overwhelm. And then that would force me into pressure, push, force, do more, volume. And that's what I was living in for so long, this survival mode of just do more, volume negates luck, which is true. But when you are constantly operating from that state or that frequency, which is your beliefs, your emotional conviction, your emotional patterns, what your subconscious is wired into, your unconscious, survival mode, because that's all I knew, struggle, hardship, suffering, that was what my identity was attached to, because that's all I knew, that's all I saw growing up. You are constantly living in a state of fear and survival. And the thing about that is, no action that you take from survival mode will equal freedom. So think about it. If you're making 15k a month or 20k a month or 30k a month, and that's the way you're operating, you will get to the top and you will make millions operating in that way. And can you imagine how empty you will feel inside, or how internally chaotic you will feel inside? You don't have freedom. You're tricking yourself into thinking, I'll have freedom when? I'll have freedom when I reach 30k a month. And then you'll reach 30. And because you haven't sat with yourself and you haven't sat with those subconscious or unconscious patterns that you're running on, you won't know what to do with yourself. And so what you'll keep doing is you'll keep distracting yourself through external things. And like I just said, as long as you place emotions and security or validation or approval or love or joy on things that are outside of you, that live outside of you, you will always be swinging to the left and to the right, because the law of rhythm states that the swing to the left is equal to the swing to the right. So what goes up has to come down. As above, so below, as within, so without. If you are constantly reacting to things that are happening outside of you, guess what? You're going to be constantly swinging. So what's the solution? The solution is to be able to sit outside of yourself, What does that mean? Be able to ascend higher. And this is essentially what happened to me. So basically, I responded with calm when that thing that happened outside of my control happened on May 7th. But what I realized was I was responding with calm, but I was being rational. And when you start to rationalize, that is also tricking yourself into a false sense of control. So my old identity, basically, I had to let go of my whole old identity of being a fitness coach, and everything in my life literally went to shit. And that was happening for me. Like, I got cheated on, I went through grief, my business literally just went beneath me. Like, my fitness businesses just went beneath me. And I was just left standing bare. I had literally nothing left. I was a shell of a human. However, I responded with calm because I had built up so much adversity over the years from entrepreneurship that I was like, I know I'm going to be fine because I have the skill set of sales, I have the skill set of content, and I know how to make money online. Like, I know how to do that. I've done it twice. I had the evidence to show that. So I was like, I can do this again, even though I was broken. But still, when I responded with that calm, kind of rational thought process of like, okay, my life is in absolute shit. I cried for about 10 minutes and I was like, I need to get on with this. Like, I need to just do what it is that I know that I'm good at and what I can do. Again, I built again from responding with rationale, but I suppressed everything that I felt because I was living it again in survival mode, because that's all I knew how to build from. So I was stripped of everything because I wished for different for my life, because I knew I was living in an identity that I didn't align with anymore. And like I said, I love that quote that I said at the start. It was like, when you pray for something, you are praying to be stripped of everything that is out of alignment with it. Don't curse the process that answers your prayers. So that's what happened to me last year when I was like letting go of all my fitness business and everything, and I was going after my goals and dreams, and I was stripped of everything. And I still responded with calm and rationale, but I still built from pain. I was still holding on to pain and the survival mode because that's all I knew. And so on the 7th of May, over the last couple of months, to be honest, I've been going through like a huge identity shift. And I've been doing so much therapy. I've done a lot of therapy over the years, like a lot of psychotherapy, because I went through an eating disorder when I was younger. And again, like control, like you really need to understand your conscious or your unconscious and subconscious patterns to understand why you are the way you are, and in order to be able to let go of that old identity to step into your next one. That's why a lot of millionaires who get to the top feel so empty inside, because what they do is they'll say, I'll be happy when I get there. And then they realize that they just kept pushing the goalposts further. They were building from survival mode, building from pain, building from suffering, building from trying to prove people wrong or prove a point. And when you build from that chip on your shoulder consistently, it's good for a while, it can get you up off the ground. But if you continue to build in that way, you will get to the top and you will be so deeply lonely and you will be so unfulfilled, and you will actually swing way back down to the bottom, because remember, what goes up has to come back down in the law of rhythm, and you will go into the depths of depression. And that's what we see. We saw that live with Tony Robbins and Alex Hormozy. He built from suffering and from pain, and he told us all live that that's not the answer. But on the other side, there was Tony Robbins, who scaled way more than Alex did, but built from joy and built from purpose and built from abundance and built from alignment. and is so fulfilled because he's so connected. And that is the goal. I realized that over the last couple of months. And basically how I was tested on the 7th of May, where I was basically stripped of my Instagram. My Instagram got suspended, and I had been posting on that page for 6 years. And I know a lot of people might be like, oh my God, that's so ridiculous. Like, is that all that happened to you? Like, your Instagram just got suspended. But it wasn't about my Instagram getting suspended. It was that I had built myself out of a horseshed with no money, having failed business in school. I had built myself out of that using that platform, and every single inch of me building myself out of that was documented. And so it wasn't about the Instagram. It was about letting go of that old version of me, and that's what I have to let go of. And I think that is the hardest part of shifting an identity or going after your goals and dreams that no one talks about. Like, it is so uncomfortable. It strips you of everything. If you are going after your goals and dreams, you will be stripped to your core again and again and again in order to create space to step forward into your light. And no one talks about this part. Like, no one talks about how uncomfortable it is. And when I realized that I was responding with calm and rationale and trying to rationalize it, I was like, oh, it's fine. Like, it's literally just an Instagram. It's not that deep. I have the skill set. I have the skill set of sales. I have the skill set of content. I know how to build again. Like, no one can take that from me. I'm just going to start pushing and forcing and start again. And that was when I realized that I was missing the whole point. The whole point of my Instagram being stripped from me was to show me that the new version of me does not build from survival. And if I was to ask people who I looked up to what to do, they would have said, you have all the skill sets, just go and do it again. And this is why it is so important to understand that opinions are the cheapest commodity on this earth. Stop looking externally for answers that you have within you. I actually asked myself, what lesson am I being taught here? When you're stripped of everything, ask yourself, what lesson am I being taught? What is the universe trying to teach me? What did I ask for? What did I pray for? And now every single thing in my life is going wrong. Like, literally everything is going tits up. That's a good sign, because it is trying to test you to see if you're someone who's capable of holding what it is that you want. And so for me, it was asking me. And if I asked, like I said, if I asked people that I looked up to, they would have told me to go back into the old identity. They would have said, just start again. And all me would have been like, yeah, let's just go. Let's fucking go. Let's do it again. Like, respond with calm, rationalize everything, because that's a form of control. That makes me feel controlled. But what's happening deep down is I'm suppressing how I actually feel, which is like upset, which is sad, which is heartbroken, which is a bit of anger. Like, I'm pressing that down. And then I'm running off of the old identity again, the old patterns again, by just push, force. And the only reason I was able to step outside myself was because I fucking sat with myself for the last year, and I asked myself the uncomfortable questions, and I just really, really upskilled in understanding levels of consciousness and manifestation and visualization and neuroscience. And I just went so deep into learning philosophy and understanding everything to understand what was happening. And because I did years of psychotherapy and ACT, which is acceptance and commitment therapy, all of it was piecing together. All of it was starting to make sense. the confusion had lifted. And I took a step back and I was like, I am not asking anyone else what I should do, because that's the old version of myself. The only reason I was able to pinpoint that was because I'd sat with myself for the last couple of months and I was understanding myself so much more in my patterns and coming up with my own answers and doing all my own study, reading hundreds of books on neuroscience, manifestation, laws of the universe, really understanding philosophy, like understanding these things and coming up with my own answers. And what I came up with was, I was able to stand and realize that this is the test that I'm being given when my Instagram was stripped. And what it taught me was, I had built out of survival mode for years. I built 2 6-figure businesses from survival mode, from push and force, from the chip on my shoulder, from the pain that I was holding. I decided at the start of this year that I wanted to become the 100K founder, 100K per month founder. And I decided I wanted to step into that and be unapologetic in that and help as much founders as possible break past their internal limitations to be able to hold that money and to be able to break past revenue ceilings, make more impact, income, freedom. And what I realized was, this is the test to see, am I going to sit with myself and learn, or am I going to run off of autopilot and go back into the old identity of what I'm familiar with? I'm not going to lie, the 10 days of sitting in uncertainty, in discomfort, and in wondering was so difficult, because I was grieving that girl that got me here. And that's the thing, like, if you're listening, there is a version of you who built you into the person that you are today. The version of you that faced adversity, that faced pain, that faced suffering, that faced trauma, they built you into the person that you are today. And so just take a second to give them a hug and say, thank you for getting me here. But oftentimes, if you've big goals and dreams, they can't come with you, because if you're carrying that pain and you're carrying that push and force and suffering and struggle and hardship, you're always going to feel internally capped. You're going to burn out. You're going to feel like shit. You're going to scale the business. You're going to get all the money and you're going to be lonely and feel horrendous. You're going to get the relationship, but if you haven't filled the gaps in you, if you haven't met yourself, if you haven't felt that love within, if you haven't validated yourself within, if you haven't approved of yourself within, you will always seek without. And what's so selfish about that is, if you're seeking that through other people, going into relationships, and you're seeking that validation, you're seeking that approval, you're seeking that security in someone else, that is really unfair. Because you're asking someone else to fill a void that's in you. You need to take personal responsibility for the voids that are within. Because the only person that you have in this life is yourself. The only person that you can get security from is yourself. Not from money, not from love, not from relationships, not from friendships. No, none of it. The money, the dreams, the goals, none of it matters if you don't know who you are within. If you cannot find security within, if you cannot find love within, approval within, you will never hold it without. You will always be swinging with the pendulum. So that was my lesson too. The old self must die if you're to ascend. What got you here will not get you there. And for me, it was clinging onto that old version of myself, of this constant proving, because I had posted every single day for 6 years on my page, and it was coming unconsciously and subconsciously from a place of proving and pushing. And the thing is that yes, I was serving my people, but it was coming at the cost of myself. So yes, I was serving people and giving free value and so much of it, but it was coming at abandoning myself, because it was coming from pain, subconsciously, from suffering, from struggle, from hardship. And that's what I learned when my Instagram was stripped away. I was clinging onto that old version of me who was proving, who was pushing, who was forcing, who was priding herself on consistency and wearing it like a badge of honor. And the thing is like, that is amazing, but the lesson is learned. I know that I'm a consistent person now. I don't need to prove that to anyone. I have nothing to prove in that, because I know who I am. I literally have nothing to prove. And the lesson learned is, if I'm someone who's going to hold 100k months, I'm not going to be proving myself. I'm not going to be like, look how consistent I am and look how unreal I am and that I post every single day. I don't need to prove anything. I have nothing to prove. But I will serve, but it's going to be coming from a different place. It's not going to be coming from proving or clinging, because as long as you cling onto that old version of yourself, you will suffer. Surrendering equals freedom. Surrendering is freedom. Every single person listening here wants freedom. That's the thing that you want. As long as you cling to the old version of yourself, you will never have that freedom, because you will always be seeking externally for what you need to fill within. And surrendering and letting go is the most freeing thing you could ever do. And so that was the choice that I took. Instead of going back into the old identity, which would have been 10 million times easier, because I knew it, I could make quick money, instant gratification, sign new clients, push on and wear it like a badge of honor. I chose to surrender because that was my calling, that was my test. And because I surrendered, I actually just went higher. And what I mean by that is, like, I can't explain the feeling, but it was like enlightenment. It was like, oh yeah, none of this matters. Nothing outside of you matters. All that matters at the end of the day is, were you a good person? Did you help people? What impact did you have on the world? And did you have yourself? Did you find the joy within yourself? Did you find the love within yourself? Did you find the security within yourself? And did you use your gifts, talents, and skills to serve others? That is it. That's the secret to living a fulfilled life. And I am so grateful that I was given this test to go up, instead of choosing pain, suffering, pushing, force, and constantly just like clinging to suffering, because that was all I initially knew. That's what I was programmed into. But you do not have to go from that place. I am telling you, you don't, if you choose to surrender and let go and go higher. Because like I said, the only thing you have in this life is yourself, and the relationship you have within is just so important for everything, for the love that you give, for the impact that you give, for the energy you give out to the world. This world, Lord knows, it needs more love. And if you are someone who wants to give more of that, you have to give it to yourself first. You have to look inward. And if you're in a collective consciousness of people pleasing, looking inward and going within and being selfish in that will be seen as being selfish. But actually going within and looking after yourself and protecting your peace and your energy is the most selfless thing you can ever do. Because when you find that within, you will no longer seek it without, and that's when you'll be able to serve. It's happening for you, not to you. Me losing my Instagram after posting for 6 years, and obviously I know it came back, but I think I know the reason it came back was because I surrendered. Like, I surrendered and I completely detached, and I chose to go inward. And actually over the last 10 days, I sat with myself, I sat with discomfort, I felt how I felt. And it wasn't about the Instagram. I need to get that across. It was not about the Instagram. That's so shallow. It was not about that. It was about losing or letting go of the old version of myself that got me to here. The girl who was bullied, the girl who was laughed at, the girl who did embarrassing things, the girl who got hate comments, hate letters, the girl who was misunderstood. Like, that is who I had to let go of in order to go upwards. And when I say it's happening for you, not to you, if you're someone who's listening right now and you're really going through it, I don't want you to take that as like it's happening for you right now, because you may need to really feel how you feel. You know, the only truths in this reality are what our subconscious minds accepts as true. Once you decide who it is that you are going to be in this life, that is who you will be. And the irony that I was at the Michael Jackson film and Michael Jackson had worked with Tony Robbins, and Tony Robbins is someone who I do really look up to, and I would say that my values and how I want to serve my people would be very similar as to how Tony does. And I truly believe like the mission that he has in life is what I'm being called for. That's what I feel. And what was so interesting was Tony Robbins worked with Michael Jackson, and Michael Jackson decided that he wanted different for his life. He wanted a whole new identity. He wanted to pursue his biggest goals and dreams. And what had to happen in order for him to do that was he had to let go of the old identity. He had to let go of the younger version of himself who sang ABC, who got him to where he was with the Jackson 5. He had to turn away on loved ones. He had to be misunderstood by the whole world, because that is what it takes to be in the 1% of people. It takes to be misunderstood. It's when you are someone who is born with gifts and talents and skills, and you have a dream inside of you that no one else understands, only you, how can you expect other people to understand you? It's actually unfair to expect people to understand you when you're going somewhere that they couldn't even dream of because they're asleep, they're not awake. Oftentimes, there's a lot of people in this world who will spend their whole lives asleep. And by that I mean in levels of consciousness, of fear, of doubt, of fear of judgment, of conformity, of overwhelm, of sadness, of despair. They will spend their whole lives conforming and living by the rules. And the cost of that is authenticity in your dreams. And it's so sad because they go so deep into those levels of consciousness that they don't believe it's true for them. The beliefs they hold is that it's reserved for other people. Dreams and goals are something reserved for other people, and they use self-fulfilling prophecies and the victim mindset and their circumstances as a barrier to stay comfortable. And the reason I say to stay comfortable is because if you're someone watching this right now, you're watching from an iPhone, probably from the comfort of your own home. So when I say this, I don't say it in regards to people who are in war-torn countries or who are in states of survival mode that they're trying to get through 1 minute of their day. Obviously, this needs context and is nuanced. But if you're someone who's watching and you have privilege and you have a roof over your head and you've food every day and you've access to water, you have the privilege of going after your dreams, and the worst case scenario for you is going back to the life that you're living right now. And that in itself is a privilege. But there's so many people who will still choose to not wake up and go after their goals and dreams because of the discomfort that comes with it, of all the tests that come with it. When you lean into your God-given calling, into your soul, you'll be stripped of everything, because there has to make space for you to go higher. You'll end up losing friends that you thought were your friends. You'll end up losing opportunities that you think are opportunities. You'll end up losing invitations into rooms that you thought you belonged in. You will be so on your own, and there'll be so much fear and doubt if you don't hold faith and you don't hold that unwavering trust that this is all happening for you to create space for you to step into your God-given calling. The last couple of things that I have written down are: opinions are cheap. Stop looking externally for answers that you hold within. Stop underestimating your own agency. Stop asking ChatGPT. The next time you go to make a decision, stop asking for answers that you already have the answer to within. Only you know what's best for your life. Only you know your dreams and goals. Only you know your whispers in your gut that your soul is telling you that no one is going to understand outside of you. Do you think anyone understood that I wanted to live a life that I'm living today, of location freedom, of time freedom, when success was deemed as being a teacher at home? Do you think anyone would have understood me if I followed Stephen Bartlett to Bali, if I told people that I followed him to Bali with oranges on my head? They'd be like, are you actually fucking well? Like, how can you explain that to someone? Stop trying to explain yourself and waste your energy on expecting people to understand you, and just go after the thing with all you've got and understand that you've got yourself. That's literally what we can learn from Michael Jackson. And he was not understood until he died, unfortunately. People are only starting to understand him now that he's dead. But he lived a life of authenticity, and because of that, he's an icon. Like, his songs will live on forever because of him choosing authenticity. The art of the present moment. All we have is the now. If you're living in the past or you're living in the future, you're always going to be stuck in anxiety or sadness or depression or lower levels of consciousness. If you're always in the past or in the future, all we have is now. Your next revenue goal or your next breakthrough is on the other side of you being radically honest with yourself and actually sitting with yourself in the quiet with no distractions. Can you signal out the noise and go within? And by going within, I mean take away every single distraction that you have and sit in the silence of your own thoughts. And if you fear that, or you feel like that is far too much to do, that's a clear sign that you've been asleep for a long period of time, and it's a choice whether you want to lean into that or not lean into it. Obviously, you can go to therapy to help with that, but just make sure that you're going to a therapist that aligns if that is the case. Any action that comes from survival mode is not freedom. So I work with a lot of entrepreneurs in breaking their internal limitations in order to break out of this addictive cycle of suffering, of pushing, of forcing. And I'm not saying that you have to take away work ethic. Of course you need a hard work ethic, but as long as it comes at the cost of abandoning yourself, you will never feel happy. That happiness that you're chasing, that freedom that you're chasing, you're actually just building more of it because you're climbing up a ladder into a box that you're building yourself into that's built off of struggle, off of hardship, off of suffering, off of force. And so more money will just expose that. You gotta get radically honest with yourself. How many thoughts are our own? I think I mentioned that already, but think for yourself. And you have to understand that when you ask for more, or when you pray for your desired reality, you will need to be stripped of everything first to be the person who's able to hold that. And if you cling on to it, you will create more suffering in your life, whether it's an old version of yourself, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a job, whether it is a career you're in, whatever it is. The longer you're clinging onto that, the more your soul is breaking, and the more out of alignment you are, leaving you in states of despair, depression, sadness, overwhelm, resentment, hate. Like, anyone who is doing what you're doing, and if they're successful in it, they are never going to tell you not to do it. They're going to tell you to go for it with all you've got. And I'm sitting here telling you right now, if you are someone who wants to go to the moon, if you want to be a multimillionaire, if you want to have a bigger impact on the world, if you want to post the content, if you want to go after your goals and dreams, that is a decision. The universe only responds to clarity. It does not respond to half in, half out. And every single one of us has been gifted this life force energy. We are no different to anyone else. No different. It's just a decision. It's a choice and it's a decision. And you can choose yourself. You can choose yourself, and you can block out all the noise, and you can go within and you can ask yourself, what is it that I want? What is it that I'm seeking outside of me? Whether it's security in money, in a job, in a relationship, whether it's seeking approval in likes, in followers, in money, whether it is seeking validation, seeking attention, whatever it is. All of those things that you are seeking outside of yourself, you're deluding yourself into a false sense of security, because those things are always going to move. You hold all the power within. You must be able to give all of those things to yourself first in order to be whole, in order to feel peace, joy, neutrality. You have to be able to give it to yourself. The universe doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you are. You are manifesting every second of every single day. Once you understand that manifestation is no more than yourself pushed out, you will decide very quickly how you want to move forward with your life. I love Nero's definition of manifestation. It's shifting internally to a degree where you're no longer emotionally dependent on seeing reality change. Because reality is the lowest vibrational state that we can exist in. It's the lowest level of consciousness that you can exist in. But if you can go inward and you can make yourself feel whole within, and you can have a really close relationship with yourself within, with the God within you, which we're all blessed with, you won't flinch when you see reality change. And even if you do, you'll feel how you feel, but a greater version of you, or a higher version of you, will trust in a higher power. And one thing I want to mention as well is, I've been doing a lot of study of different texts. I actually have one of them here. The Bhagavad Gita is one that I love, and I've been doing a lot of study on neuroscience, philosophy, religions, and looking at those things esoterically. And I love studying multimillionaires and billionaires because I want to be a multimillionaire, and I love learning from them, especially this book here. I love this book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, because they give you all the answers that they wish they had. And the biggest one is what I'm learning right now, is clinging on to things that don't serve you anymore, whether it's people, energy, a job, career, relationship. That's causing suffering, but surrender is freedom. If you can surrender, let go and let God, and you can go within, all the answers are in there. They're all within you. But what I love the most about the Bhagavad Gita, it's from the Mahabharata, and it's a derivative of Hinduism. And what I really love about what they believe in is, they believe that the earth that we live in is immortal. And it makes sense because it's all made up of energy. Everything, like this pen that I'm holding, the watch that I have, like, it's all made up of energy. And in between me and the camera, there's just loads of atoms of energy. And they believe that if someone we love passes on, that their soul is still very much alive, and the unseen will see the unseen. There's a whole world that we don't know about. We only see 0.35% of the world, which is crazy. That's all we know. Like, there's so much that we just don't know. And I think there's great comfort in knowing that, you know, until we meet again, it's the same in the Bible, that, you know, if you have a loved one who has passed on, that in Hinduism, they really believe that you will see them when you go to. And I suppose that's when people talk about heaven. And heaven, I believe, I look at everything esoterically. So I believe that heaven is something that exists in all of us. And heaven is just those higher levels of consciousness. And that is just joy, peace, calm, neutrality. Look up David R. Hawkins, The Levels of Consciousness, and you'll get the entire map. He mapped it out. And it will bring a lot of peace. And for years, I wondered why my grandmother had so much peace when people passed on. And it was her faith. It was an unwavering faith that, you know, they'll meet again on a soul level. And because in Hinduism, and that was in Catholicism, but because in Hinduism, they like believe everything is made up of energy, which I believe too, like the world is made up of energy, that it's immortal, it can't die. And so, yes, their physical body's going, but their soul will always remain alive. And I think that's a very comforting thought. So the main lessons that I wanted everyone to take from this was, when you ask for a certain reality, or you ask for peace or location freedom or time freedom, or for a different life or a different identity, you need to be prepped for the tests that come with that. And oftentimes it comes with your whole world falling apart first, because that old self has to die. The entire inch of that cannot come with you to the next level. And you're going to be misunderstood. People are not going to understand you. They're going to think that you've changed because you have. And if you're not growing, you're dying. Tony Robbins always says that. And when you are choosing to put yourself out there and to do different things, you cannot choose how you're going to be perceived. And there's half truths in everything. So this is derived from the Kabbalion, which is the Hermetics philosophy. And I love this. It's like, take me, for example. I want to be a multimillionaire. I want to have a bigger impact on the world. I want to give back massively on a huge level. And I also want a big life. And I'm not afraid to say that. For a long time, I was afraid to say that out loud, but I want to live wherever it is that I want to live. It's essentially freedom. I want to go after my goals and dreams. I want to be a lead actress in a film one day. I want to have one of the biggest podcasts in the world. I want to have all these things, to serve, to show up in a way that inspires people and makes people change how they see the world differently, and choose themselves and choose their soul and choose what it is that their soul calling is, and go after their goals and dreams. I would just want to do that on the biggest scale ever. And touch as many people as I possibly can in that, and change people's lives in that. And there will be people who choose to see that in a way where all she cares about is money. She's greedy, she's selfish, she has no idea what she's on about, she shits on other people, like all this. And that's okay, because that is also true in their world, from their perspective and from their level of consciousness and from their understanding of the world. And that's what you need to understand, is that people are only seeing you through their lens, through their world, through their level of consciousness. And so expecting people who you don't want to be anything like or who you do not resonate with in any way, shape or form to understand you and your life and what you're doing is absolutely crazy. It would kind of be like Michael Jackson expecting people to understand the path that he took in that time when no one else was doing it. It doesn't make sense for you to make people understand you. And that's not what you're here for in this life. You are not here to be liked and pleased by other people. You are here to go after what your soul calling is and to lean into that. And that is just listening to yourself within. It's blocking out all the noise. It's getting rid of all of the opinions, and it's going inward and asking yourself, what is it that my soul wants me to lean into and that my soul craves? And that is where all your answers lie. But what will come on the other side of that is a path of the highest resistance, because you're leaning into not conforming anymore. And so you're leaning into being misunderstood. And that's a lonely path for a while. But what you will find is the closer you get to yourself and the more you build up the relationship with yourself, you nearly feel lonelier around people that don't understand you. And I promise you, there are people on the other side just like you. And I am here to tell you that you are so capable. You are so capable of taking the path of most resistance. It's uncomfortable, but it's also really uncomfortable to look back when you're 90 years old and be like, why didn't I just go for it? Thank God I didn't embarrass myself. Thank God I didn't try post the content. Thank God I didn't try start the business. Thank God I didn't try go for it. You're never going to think that. You're going to be like, at least I tried. You won't have any what ifs, any second guessing. And the thing is, we never know when our last breath is. And so many of us take every single day for granted. We take minutes, days for granted there. And we just presume that we're going to be here for a long time, in the physical at least. It's not the truth. You don't know when your last breath is. And so instead of fearing of the people who are going to judge you for doing different or for going after your goals and dreams or for wanting to make a lot of money and make a bigger impact on the world, instead of fearing what other people think of you, of small-minded people think of you, you should be fearing what if I die? What if this is my last week? That's the question you need to be asking yourself. And I know that sounds very dark, but I just want people to wake up and realize what they're capable of and that they do not have to conform. And just know that when you do surrender, you will be stripped of everything. When you are leveling up, when you are going after your biggest goals and dreams, you will be tested and stripped of everything. And that's where most people fuck up. They self-sabotage and they go back to their old identity. They're like, oh, it didn't work. Everything went to shit. Everything went tits up. And they missed the test. They failed the test. They went back to their old life. They went back to the old identity. And the whisper will never go away. Your soul calling will never go away. So you're either prolonging your process that's going to happen anyway, or you're going to live a life that's inauthentic. Whereas if you can just surrender instead of clinging on and just have an unwavering trust that everything is happening for you, and you can just hold that and go higher, ascend into the higher levels of consciousness, have faith, have an unwavering faith that it's all going to work out for you, because it will. And when you think like that, you'll pass the test and you'll just go upwards. And everything that you could ever dream of will land in your lap. You only even need to worry about the how.